Welcome to Mastering Mystical Mysteries, where AI meets the ancient wisdom of esoteric literature. In each episode, we explore spiritual and occult books, revealing hidden truths through advanced AI analysis. Whether you are a seasoned seeker or simply curious about the mystical, we uncover knowledge from across the world's traditions. Today, we are diving into another thought-provoking text filled with spiritual insight and occult wisdom. If you enjoy our journey into the unknown, please remember to subscribe, comment, and like to stay connected with future revelations. Let us begin.
Hey there. Ready to dive into something a little different today? We're going way back for this one, like way, way back.
Yeah, buckle up because we're about to crack open a 14th century sermon.
A sermon. You heard that right. But trust me, it's got some surprisingly relevant stuff to say about finding joy, gratitude, those things we're always searching for even now.
It's wild how these older texts can still speak to us, right? We're going to be looking at the words of this, anonymous mystic. They were really drawing on figures like St. Paul.
Okay, so we're looking at Sermon 27, and right off the bat, boom, it quotes Paul's letter to the Philippians.
Big time.
It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always and have no more care. The Lord is here." Wow. That's heavy stuff. But, what was going on back then? What's the context for this kind of message?
Well, picture this, right? Plagues, wars, political turmoil all over the place. Life in the 14th century, it wasn't exactly a walk in the park, I'll tell you.
I can imagine.
This sermon, it was part of a larger collection, probably something they shared within a monastic community. So you've got this group of people seeking refuge, a little solace amidst, some pretty intense chaos.
Makes sense.
And these words, rejoice in the Lord always, that was like their path, a path to some kind of inner peace when the whole world outside, anything but.
It's amazing how relevant that still is. People going through tough times, they turn to faith for comfort, for guidance. It's interesting, though, because the sermon, it doesn't just say, our Lord. It's really emphasizing in the Lord. Is there a difference there? What do you make of that?
Oh, that's a good catch. You're right. The emphasis there, that's huge. What the mystic is getting at is the immensity of God. See, God's lordship, it isn't about just ruling over creation like picture a king on a throne, not quite. It's bigger, way more expansive. It's less about control and more about exceeding, transcending all the earthly stuff. So true joy, the kind that really sticks with you, that comes from connecting to that boundless eternal source, not to the fleeting things of this world.
So not the stuff we're always chasing after, but something bigger.
I see.
Okay, then there's this other line that really got me. It says, "He rejoices all the time who rejoices above time." Now that sounds kind of, I don't know. What does it even mean to be above time?
It's powerful imagery, isn't it? It's about transcendence, going beyond those day-to-day worries, the anxieties that keep us stuck in our heads.
Oh, I know those anxieties.
To really experience joy, especially the joy that's connected to something divine, we need to quiet all that noise in our minds. We need to just be present right here, right now. Have you ever noticed how when you're doing something you love, something that really absorbs you, and all those worries, they just kind of fade away?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the time itself stops just for a bit. That's kind of the state the mystic is talking about here.
That's interesting. So it's about finding that inner stillness, that connection to something beyond my to-do list and my worries, right? Like a more mindful way of approaching even spirituality centuries before mindfulness was a thing. And speaking of focus, this sermon, it also talks a lot about aligning our thoughts, words, and actions, especially when it talks about truth. This is where it gets a little complex for me, so I'm curious to hear your take on it.
Yeah, and this is where our mystic dives headfirst into some serious theological ideas. Like, there's this whole concept that the Son is truth, but not the Father or the Holy Spirit except in their essence.
Ooh, okay.
I know, right? It might seem like a subtle distinction, but it reflects a very specific understanding of the Trinity. Don't get too hung up on the details if it feels a little dense. The core message here is about authenticity. The mystic is connecting this idea of truth to how we praise, how we speak of God. It has to be genuine from this place of alignment within ourselves.
So true praise, true connection, it's not just about, saying the right words.
Yeah.
It has to come from some genuine place inside.
Exactly. It can't just be going through the motions. It has to be backed up by our thoughts and our actions, too.
Walking the walk. Wow.
Walking the walk. Yeah, it's that integrity piece.
Oh.
Right. Doing what's right, even when nobody's watching. Okay, then it connects all of that to this idea of the threefold soul. And Full disclosure, not a term I use every day.
I hear you. Not exactly something you see on a motivational poster.
Yeah.
But basically, think of it as the different parts of ourselves. You've got your intellect, right? The thinking, reasoning part of you.
Yeah.
That's connected to faith.
Okay.
Then there's aspiration, your hopes, dreams, what you're reaching for. And the mystic connects that to hope.
Right.
And finally, your will, the part that takes action, that's all about love.
So it's like this whole tapestry of like faith, hope, and love all interwoven inside us. And we got to get those working together if we want to really connect with the divine and feel that joy. You got it. And it's not about one being more important than the others, but understanding how they work together. It's through that internal harmony, that alignment within ourselves, that we tap into that real connection, that overflowing joy. But even with all of this talk about the soul and these big theological ideas, I love how the sermon comes back to something so simple, so relatable: gratitude.
It's true. Even in all this deep stuff, there's this message that's actually really comforting. You don't need to be some kind of scholar to experience this joy. It can start with something as basic as just appreciating what we have, right?
100%. The sermon is saying that even if all we do is work on that deep sense of gratitude, well, that's a powerful practice in itself.
Yeah. And, you don't even have to be religious to connect with that. Just appreciating a sunny day, a good meal, the people you love, those things, they lift you up.
Totally. And the fascinating thing is, the sermon suggests that even those little feelings of gratitude, those quiet moments of awe or appreciation, they don't go unnoticed. It's like even in the silence of our own hearts, we're still connected to something larger than ourselves.
It's like you do something nice for someone,
Yeah.
right? And it feels good. Not because you want a pat on the back or anything, just because it feels, I don't know.
Right. Like an expression of something inside you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this sermon, it's telling us to go through life like that with that same kind of, I don't know.
Intention.
Yeah. Genuine connection, overflowing with joy and gratitude and all that, which honestly, that can be kind of a radical way to live, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Especially these days. It makes me think about that phrase we were talking about before, rejoicing in the Lord. People say it all the time, but it's like this sermon is really pushing us to
Unpack it.
Yeah, to really dig into what that means, because it's more than just saying, hey, God's got this.
It's definitely deeper than that. It's like understanding that real joy, the kind the mystic keeps talking about. It doesn't come from our everyday stuff.
Exactly. The mystic makes this point that God's lordship, it's not about controlling things the way we think about it. It's like, it transcends all that.
Okay.
We have to get away from picturing a king on a throne making all the decisions, It's about recognizing something infinite, this boundless nature of God. That's how we get to the joy the mystic's describing.
Not about getting what we want or everything going our way, but finding that unshakable center inside us, being connected to something bigger, something unchanging, even when everything feels totally chaotic.
Yes. And that message, it's just as relevant whether you're living through the Black Death or, just having a crazy week at work.
Totally. Life is messy no matter what century you're in.
Right. And this is like the mystic saying, hey, here's how to weather those storms.
And find that inner peace. Which brings us back to that image of rejoicing above time. It's like detaching from the worries, the anxieties, those thoughts that just spiral. Would you say it's about being more present, being here now, in this moment?
100%. The sermon is all about quieting the mind, being fully present. It's funny, it's like mindfulness, but from centuries ago. Think about it. When you're doing something you love, something that really absorbs you, where's your mind at?
Not in the past, not worrying about the future. It's just there.
Present. And in those moments, all the inner chatter just kind of
quiets down.
Exactly. That's the stillness the mystic wants us to find.
Like a superpower or something. And speaking of aligning ourselves, remember that part about truth? And how our thoughts, words, actions all have to be in sync.
Oh, yeah. True praise, true connection, it comes from a place of authenticity. It can't just be empty words.
You have to really mean it.
You got it. It's all connected, see? The sermon ties it beautifully back to those three parts of the soul: intellect, aspiration, will, faith, hope, and love. They need to be in harmony to really connect with that divine spark and experience true joy.
It's bringing our head, heart, and hands into alignment.
Right.
Thoughts, feelings, actions, all working together.
Yeah.
But even with all these big theological discussions, what I like is that it always comes back to something so simple: gratitude.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like, even amidst all these complex ideas about God and the soul, the path to joy starts with appreciating what we already have.
A sunny day, a good meal, hearing from a friend. It's the simple things that can really impact how we feel.
So true. And what's really cool is that the sermon actually suggests those feelings of gratitude, even the ones we don't say out loud, they're acknowledged by something bigger than us. Even in the silence of our hearts, we're still connected.
That's a powerful thought, that
Yeah.
something sees those moments. Even when we think we're alone in them, it's like they matter.
They do matter. And the sermon doesn't just leave us there. It challenges us to take that inner transformation, that feeling of connection, and let it out.
So not just feel grateful, but like live it. It's like you throw a pebble in the water, right?
Yeah.
And the ripples, they just keep going out and out.
Exactly. It's not about, okay, now go do these good deeds. It's more like when you tap into that real joy, the kind that comes from connecting with something bigger, well, it just kind of naturally spills over into everything you do.
It's less about checking things off the to-do list and more about, like, who am I being while I'm doing them right?
Yes. Are you coming from a place of gratitude, of love, or something else? That's the question.
That's a big question. And honestly, it's not like you figure it out overnight, right?
It's a lifelong thing for sure. It's like those mindfulness exercises, you
Right.
know, where they tell you to focus on your breath. Your mind wanders, you notice it, you gently bring it back. It's not about being perfect. It's about constantly striving.
I can get behind that. And that's what I appreciate about this whole sermon, you know. It always comes back to that simple message. You don't have to be some kind of saint.
It's those little acts of kindness, those small moments where you're really present, the choices we make every single day adding up.
Instead of trying to change everything at once, maybe it's about asking, what's one tiny way I can show gratitude today?
Love that. And it connects back to the whole idea of God being bigger than anything we can imagine, right? When
Yeah.
we stop limiting ourselves, when we tap into that limitless source of love and joy, gratitude, that's where we find our true selves.
It's like this mystic from the 14th century is giving us permission to be bigger, bolder, more connected than we thought we could be.
And maybe, just maybe, when we do that, we bring a little more light into the world too, don't you think?
I do, I really do. So here we are talking about a sermon from like 700 years ago, and look at what we found. Mindfulness, authenticity, the power of gratitude. Who knew?
It's amazing how these questions, they just keep coming up no matter what century you're in, right? How do we live? How do we find meaning? What connects us to something bigger than ourselves?
It makes you think. What helps you slow down, find that stillness, feel connected? Is it meditation, prayer,
Yeah.
spending time in nature? And how do you take that feeling and, I don't know, put it out there in a way that feels real to you?
Those are great questions to sit with. And, you know, what works for one person might not work for another, and that's okay. The important thing is that you keep searching, keep trying to live in alignment with what you believe. That's how we grow.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. You know, it's more than just dusty old sermons. Hope you can take some of this wisdom with you and find a little more joy in your journey, wherever you are.